The plane exploded, at 31,000 feet. The cockpit was gone. Everyone should have died instantly. But the aircraft didn't fall. It kept flying, for 13 minutes. December 21, 1988. A Boeing 747 is climbing through the dark winter sky over Europe. 243 passengers, 16 crew members, and almost everyone on board is thinking about one thing. Christmas. Families are asleep. Flight attendants are serving drinks. Children press their faces against the windows, watching the clouds far below. Everything feels normal. Safe. Routine. But hidden deep inside the cargo hold, there is a suitcase. And inside that suitcase, something is counting down. Then, without warning, an explosion tears through the front of the aircraft. The nose of the plane is ripped apart. Fire flashes through the cabin. The cockpit is instantly separated from the rest of the airplane. At 31,000 feet, the giant jet should have fallen from the sky immediately. But it doesn't. Because somehow, for the next 13 minutes, the airplane keeps flying. And what happened in those final minutes became one of the most terrifying mysteries in aviation history. This is the story of Pan Am Flight 103. It is the evening of December 21st, Pan Am Flight 103 has just departed from London Heathrow Airport. The aircraft is a Boeing 747 named Clipper Made of the Seas. Its destination is New York. The flight is full. There are students returning home for the holidays, business travelers, entire families, and a group of young Americans flying back after studying abroad. Everything appears completely normal. The captain, James McQuarrie, has more than 11,000 hours of flying experience. The crew has flown this route many times before. The weather is calm. There is no sign that anything is wrong. At 6:25 p.m., the plane takes off. The Boeing 747 climbs higher and higher into the night sky. By 7 p.m., it is cruising above Scotland at 31,000 feet. Inside the cabin, passengers are relaxing. Some are reading. Some are sleeping. Some are already imagining Christmas morning. No one knows that hidden inside a suitcase in the cargo hold, a bomb is counting down. Second by second. Minute by minute. Waiting. The explosive device is hidden inside a small radio cassette player packed in a suitcase. The suitcase has been loaded onto the plane without the passenger who supposedly owned it ever boarding the flight. At the time, airport security is far weaker than it is today. Suitcases can sometimes travel without their owners. No one notices anything unusual. The bag is placed in the front cargo hold of the airplane. Just beneath the passenger cabin. Just below the cockpit. The timer inside the bomb continues ticking. Minute after minute. Higher and higher, the plane climbs into the freezing darkness above the clouds. Then, at exactly 7:03 p.m., the bomb explodes. The explosion tears a massive hole in the left side of the aircraft. The pressure inside the cabin is instantly lost. A shockwave blasts through the front of the plane. The nose section begins to break apart. The cockpit is violently damaged. In a fraction of a second, the pilots lose control. The front of the Boeing 747 is ripped away from the rest of the aircraft. Debris begins raining from the sky over the Scottish town of Lockerbie. But here is the part almost nobody knows. The entire airplane does not immediately fall apart. The center and rear sections of the aircraft are still moving forward at more than 500 miles per hour. The wings are still producing lift. The engines are still running. For a few moments, the damaged plane continues flying through the night. The passengers in the back of the aircraft may not even understand what has happened. 1 second, they are sitting quietly. The next second, the lights go out. The cabin shakes. The air becomes freezing cold. Loose objects are sucked into the darkness. And then the airplane begins to descend. Investigators later discover something shocking. After the explosion, parts of the aircraft remain in the air for approximately 13 more minutes. The Boeing 747 is no longer a complete airplane. It is a broken, dying machine moving through the sky. The main body of the aircraft continues forward. The wings remain attached. The engines continue producing thrust. At first, the aircraft may have still been partially controllable, but without the cockpit and with critical systems destroyed, the airplane slowly begins to lose stability. As the damaged fuselage races southward, more and more pieces break away. The tail section separates. The wings begin to fail. Fuel pours into the air. The aircraft enters a steep dive. Inside what remains of the cabin, passengers are thrown violently from side to side. The pressure is gone. The temperature drops far below freezing. The roar of the wind is deafening. No one can understand what is happening. The final descent lasts only minutes, but for the people on board, it must have felt like forever. Below the airplane is the small Scottish town of Lockerbie. People are inside their homes. Some are watching television. Others are preparing dinner. Children are getting ready for bed. Then suddenly, they hear a sound unlike anything they have ever heard before. A deep roar from the sky. Residents look outside. They see fire falling from the clouds. Then the largest section of the airplane crashes into the town. The impact is catastrophic. The Boeing 747 slams into a residential neighborhood at enormous speed. The explosion destroys several houses instantly. A massive fireball lights up the night. The ground shakes. Windows shatter across the town. The crash kills everyone on board the aircraft. It also kills 11 people on the ground. In total, 270 people lose their lives. The peaceful town of Lockerbie is transformed into a disaster zone in seconds. When investigators arrive, they are faced with an impossible task. Pieces of the airplane are scattered across more than 800 square miles. Fields, roads, forests, and neighborhoods are covered in wreckage. At first, no one knows what caused the crash. Was it a mechanical failure? A fuel tank explosion? A missile? Then investigators find something small, a fragment of a circuit board. Then a piece of a suitcase. Then part of a radio cassette player. Slowly, they begin to realize the truth. The airplane did not crash because of an accident. It was destroyed by a bomb. The investigation becomes one of the largest in history. Thousands of pieces of wreckage are collected and reconstructed. The bomb is traced back to a suitcase loaded in Malta, transferred through Germany, and finally placed onto Pan Am Flight 103 in London. Years later, investigators identify the attack as an act of terrorism. The disaster becomes one of the deadliest terrorist attacks ever carried out against an airplane. The strangest part of the story is still the same question: how did the airplane keep flying after the explosion? The answer comes down to one thing: the sheer size of the Boeing 747. A 747 is enormous. Even after the front section was destroyed, the remaining body of the aircraft still had momentum. The wings continued generating lift. The engines kept running. For several minutes, the damaged plane was still technically flying. But it was no longer under control. It was like a car speeding down a highway with no driver. At first, it continues moving. But eventually, it crashes. That is exactly what happened to Pan Am Flight 103. The explosion did not destroy the entire aircraft instantly. Instead, it began a chain reaction. A slow collapse in the sky. The plane kept flying, until it finally came apart. More than 35 years later, the story of Pan Am Flight 103 still terrifies people around the world. Not only because of the explosion, but because of what happened after. For 13 minutes, a destroyed airplane remained in the sky, flying through the darkness, breaking apart piece by piece. And the people inside had no way to escape. Sometimes the most terrifying part of a disaster is not the moment it begins. It is the moment when it keeps going. If you want more true aviation stories that sound impossible but actually happened, subscribe now. Because the next story is even more unbelievable.